What's up and welcome back to the Metalhead Car Show. So if you follow this channel, you know we like to talk about supercars. Specifically, prototypes, the obscure things, and stuff you've probably never heard of, those supercars. And today's no exception, because we're going to be talking about a production supercar that completely failed, and it's an absolute shame. And it's Canadian. When you think of Canadian cars, you think about the Bricklin, maybe the T-Rex by weird circumstance, and really nothing else. But back in 2007, there was a new name in the Canadian market, and that was the HTT. The HTT came out of Quebec, and their plans was to build a supercar. But this thing wasn't going to be like your ordinary supercar. Because yes, like every single Camaro you've ever seen on YouTube, it has an LS. But unlike every other Camaro you've seen on YouTube, it has a center steering wheel and 3 seats, much like the McLaren F1. This thing was going to be a monster. I've seen prototype cars use a big block Chevy 572 crate engine, but when this thing debuted at the Montreal International Auto Show in 2007, it came with a modified Chevy LS9 engine. So the same engine you got a Corvette ZR1 at the time, but unlike the ZR1, this thing was modified to 750 horsepower on a car that weighed 2,500 pounds. But that was just the prototype. When this thing actually came to be a bit closer to production, they dropped the supercharger in favor for turbos, which bumped it up to 1,100 horsepower. Think of it this way, as when the McLaren F1 weighed about 2,600 pounds and made 627 horsepower, this thing weighed 2,500 pounds and made 1,100 horsepower. That is absurd. Closer context, a Bugatti Veyron made 1,001 horsepower but weighed in excess of 4,000 pounds. This thing was going to be viciously fast. But there's one problem, and that is money. Yes, everyone's problem, but in particular, HHT didn't quite have the funds to get the project going, so they actually brought to a Canadian TV show called Dragon's Den. And on that episode of Dragon's Den, they actually had a successful deal with it. I think it was like one of them was going to get 2 or 3 cars and track time paid for by the company with it or something along those lines. Problem: the deal ended up falling through after one of them took it for a test drive and it had a transmission failure, which frankly, that shouldn't be on HHT. Tremec made the transmission, which Tremec is a great transmission company, but the component that broke was made by Tremec, not them, so it's really unfortunate that it kind of killed the deal. But after that, a new investor stepped in to make HHT hit their goal of making 99 cars. But at this point, the dream is kind of dead. HTT banged out a debated 6 or 7 Plethoras, and that was kind of it. On the extremely rare occasion, one of these will pop up in Montreal at local car shows, but they are obscenely rare and get zero attention. But they did get attention in 2013. In 2013, they talked about bringing it back with a twin-turbo, 1,300 horsepower, 8.3 liter Viper engine, calling it the LC 1300. And it simply just never happened. The HTT ended up being scrapped, and its best legacy is it being known for a video game called Asphalt 8 and being a failed car on the Dragon's Den. And frankly, this is a shame. I thought this car was so cool and just so aggressive, despite it uses 4 taillights from a Ford Thunderbird, but it was just such overkill for what it needed to be. It had scissor doors, but it had 180-degree scissor doors. Like, it didn't need to be a 3-seater. It didn't need to make over 1,000 horsepower, but it did. And that's just what separates it from a lot of these other failed supercars or supercars of its time. Because if you think about it, 2007, when this thing was debuted, the most powerful Ferrari you could buy was a 660 horsepower Enzo. The most powerful Lamborghini you could buy was a 640 horsepower Murcielago. McLaren as a company hasn't come back yet, and in regards to speed freaks, Tesla's just barely getting on the scene with the Roadster, and at this point Bugatti's very, very new and only so many people have tested one, and Koenigsegg just doesn't have the rep that they do now. I've always said with a lot of these cars, if it came out, it would have pushed boundaries and made other companies do this. And honestly, I think this car is no exception. Then, and especially now, there are so few cars that are mid-engine, high-power V8 and a manual. Manual with a clutch pedal. I felt like I need to clarify that one. So frankly, along with the Koenigsegg, one of its very few real competitions probably would have been the Selena 7, which unfortunately also ended up failing long term. All things said and done, this is a unicorn, a high-powered V8 with a manual transmission that's mid-engine and a 3-seater, and has cool doors, and has insane styling. I don't think we're ever going to see a car like this ever again. Just kind of think about it now. Back in, I think, April, I did a video kind of talking about the top 10 cars I want to review long term. And I stand by all of those, but I think I just kind of forgot about this car a little bit, because I would desperately love to check one of these out. There's such little footage on YouTube of these, and I would love to be one of the very few people to actually get that footage. So by the extremely odd chance there's anyone watching this video with a Plethora, and for some reason you trust me to drive it, or you're willing to give me a ride, let me know in the comments. I would love to check it out almost more than any other car on the planet. Which is a ridiculous statement, but honestly, it is a very real statement. But anyway, I want to know, what do you think about the HTT Plethora? Do you think this thing would have succeeded, and simply, do you remember this when it first came out? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, subscribe if you enjoyed, if you've seen. I tend to post on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, and I'll see you later.